In 2020, a face appeared on the internet, and the world laughed at it. It was a lamb, not a cartoon, not a meme. A lamb at the centre of one of the most important paintings ever made, and when its restored face was revealed, people called it unsettling, humanoid, wrong. They said the restorers had ruined a masterpiece. The image travelled around the world in a matter of hours. Here is what almost no one realised. That strange, staring face was not a mistake. It was not invented by modern hands. It was not damage. It was the face the painter intended hidden for nearly 5 centuries beneath a calmer, gentler version that someone had painted on top of it. The version everyone grew up with, the quiet, peaceful lamb, was the alteration. The disturbing one was the truth. So the real mystery was never what went wrong in the restoration. The real mystery is older and stranger. Someone long ago looked at this sacred face and decided you should not see it. They covered its eyes, and for 460 years we agreed with them. The question this video follows is simple. Why? To understand what was hidden, you first have to understand where it was hidden. This is the Ghent Altarpiece. It was completed in 1432 in the city of Ghent, in what is now Belgium. It is not a single painting, it's 12 panels that fold open like a great wooden book. Closed, it's solemn and earthly. Open, it explodes into colour. Saints, angels, prophets, and a vision of heaven so detailed it can take hours to read. It was painted by Jan van Eyck and, the frame tells us, begun by his brother Hubert. Hold on to that phrase, the frame tells us. We'll come back to it. For now, what matters is the technique. Van Eyck painted light in a way no one before him quite had. Light on metal, light through cloth, light on skin. People stood in front of this thing in the 15th century and felt they were looking through a window, not at a wall. And at the very centre of the open altarpiece stands the reason it exists, a lamb, white, calm, standing on an altar. Blood runs from its breast into a golden cup. This is the Lamb of God Christ as sacrifice, the image the entire painting is built to surround. For centuries, that lamb had a gentle face, eyes turned softly to the side, a broad, mild expression. Exactly what you'd expect of a sacred animal in a holy painting. Then, in 2019, the restorers reached it, and underneath they found something looking back. Here is the first thing you need to know, because it changes everything that follows. When conservators began cleaning this altarpiece, they expected dirt and old varnish. What they found instead was a second painting, sitting on the top of the first. Around 70% of the outer panels, by the conservators' own account, had been painted over by later hands. Not cleaned, not retouched at the edges, covered. Using X-rays and infrared imaging, the same kind of forensic tools you'd use on a crime scene, they could see 2 paintings stacked one on top of the other. A blue hill on the horizon lifted away to reveal a row of tiny buildings, painted in the style of medieval Ghent, that had been hidden for centuries. So this was not one altered detail. This was a systematic reworking of the painting's surface, done long after Van Eyck laid down his brush. Which raises the obvious question, who and when? The evidence points to around the year 1550, more than a century after the painting was finished. A Ghent chronicle from that period records that 2 prominent painters were brought in to work on the altarpiece. The phrase the chronicle uses, in the old local dialect, can mean to clean, but also to improve, to correct. The 2 names most associated with this campaign are Lancelot Blondel and Jan van Eyck, respected artists, not vandals, that matters. Whoever did this was not careless. They were skilled. They made a deliberate choice, which makes the choice they made at the very centre of the painting all the stranger. Let's go back to the lamb. When the restorers removed the overpaint from its face, the difference was startling. The calm version had a longer muzzle, large ears, and eyes that drifted gently to the side. The face beneath it was different in almost every way. A shorter muzzle, ears in a different position, and the eyes two large, round, forward-facing, almost human eyes aimed directly out of the painting. At you. The conservation study published in 2020 confirmed it. The forward-gazing eyes and the shorter face were Van Eyck's original. The peaceful, averted lamb was the later addition. And then there's a detail most people never hear about. Beneath the surface, the imaging revealed something even deeper, traces of an earlier lamb body, painted by Van Eyck himself, with a more naturalistic build. In other words, before anyone else ever touched it, Van Eyck was already revising this animal. And the direction he pushed was towards something more lifelike, more present, more there. So here is the contradiction at the heart of this painting. The maker moved toward confrontation. A later century moved away from it. Around 1550, someone took those forward-facing eyes that meet yours and turned them gently aside. They took a face that watched and made it a face that merely existed. Why would devout people, in a devout age, soften the face of the holiest figure in the painting? We don't have a confession. No document survives in which anyone writes, "I change the lamb's face because." So what comes next, I want to be honest, moves from fact into interpretation. Here is what we do know about the world of 1550. It was an age of religious upheaval. The Reformation was tearing through Europe. In the Low Countries, Calvinism was rising, and with it a deep suspicion of religious images, a fear that paintings like this one were dangerous, even idolatrous. Within a few years, mobs would attack churches across the region, smashing exactly this kind of sacred art. The scholar who has studied this overpainting most closely argues that the changes were tied to this moment and effort, connected to the Catholic establishment, to present the altarpiece in a way that suited the religious mood of the time, to make it, in the conservator's phrase, conform to the taste of the time. And maybe this is reflection now, not fact. A lamb that stares directly at you is harder to live with than a lamb that looks away. A face that meets your eyes makes a demand. It sees you. In an age terrified of how images were being used, perhaps a Lamb of God that looked back was simply too much. Easier to let it gaze gently into the distance. Easier to share a room with something holy that isn't quite watching you. And that instinct didn't end in 1550, because when the original face returned in 2020, our reaction was the same as theirs. We flinched. We called it wrong. We wanted the gentle version back, 460 years apart, and the same discomfort. So what did Van Eyck actually paint? He painted a lamb that looks at you, not past you, not away from you, at you. In Christian theology, this is the Lamb of God, the one whose sacrifice is meant to see and to take away the sin of the world. Van Eyck gave that idea a face with eyes that find yours and hold them. The sacrifice that looks back at the very person it's for. That was the intention. And the entire later history of this small face is the history of people trying, quietly, to make it stop. That's the truth that was always there, waiting under the paint. Here's the thought I'll leave you with. We tend to think of restoration as repair, fixing what time has broken. But this painting reveals something harder. Sometimes what we inherit isn't the original at all. Sometimes it's the edited version softened, made comfortable by people who loved it but couldn't quite bear it as it was. And when the truth finally surfaces, we don't always welcome it. Sometimes we laugh. Sometimes we ask for the comfortable version back. Reverence and censorship, it turns out, can wear almost the same face. Every age decides what the sacred is allowed to look like. The 16th century made its choice with a brush. We made ours with a joke. And the lamb, the real one, the one Van Eyck painted, has been looking back at all of us the entire time. And this is only one face, in one panel, of a painting full of them. Look again at the crowd gathered around that altar, and you'll find figures who, by every rule of the age, shouldn't be there, pre-Christian philosophers and pagan righteous, standing among the saints of heaven. Look at the frame, and there's that word again, the claim that a brother named Hubert began this work. A brother who left behind almost no trace anywhere else. And somewhere out in the world, perhaps, sits a panel of this very altarpiece that was stolen in 1934 and has never been found. The lamb gave up one of its secrets. The painting is still keeping the rest,